Hi everyone, welcome back to the Youth and Politics podcast. My name is Carrera.
And my name's Cody. Today we are going to be talking about all things neurodivergent in politics.
Yes.
And today we're with,
Hi, I'm Lots.
yeah. So thank you for coming on.
Mhm.
It's great to have you, and I feel like this topic is so needed to be talked about for so long.
Mm.
Um, Now, what like I feel personally is, what do you think how young people are affected by
Ableism.
albinism? I'm so sorry. In the political atmosphere currently in UK.
Okay, so ableism is everywhere, especially with like the divide between the different generations. So, as we're like going through, I feel like society, especially young people, are getting more and more knowledge about different disabilities. Just for anyone that doesn't know, ableism is discrimination to different like disabilities, um, neurodivergent differences. Basically, pushing aside anyone who's different, trying to outclass anyone who's different. That's the way I like to look at it. And I feel like, especially with autistic young people, like autism's being more and more recognized, is being diagnosed more and more. And I feel like it's a lot of autistic people aren't being taken seriously. A lot of disabled people aren't being taken seriously, especially in regards to the political climate. Okay, there's a lot of things that we can talk about there, but essentially we are being seen as lazy. We're being seen as faking the disability to get money, for example.
No, that is like I know many young people that can relate to that. What is your personal opinion on how like the education system in itself deals with these type of issues? And do you actually think education actually helps in any way?
Okay, so I think it really, really depends on the different teachers. So I think the education system as a whole, it does a lot more like damage to neurodivergent young people than it does good. And I think that comes from a lot of ignorance. I do think that having one good teacher can change so, so much, genuinely so much. But teachers are often, it's like they don't really take young people seriously. I'm going to use my own experiences as an example here. So obviously I'm autistic. I got diagnosed with autism at 18. I remember when I was in secondary school and I went to like tell the teachers that I think I may be autistic. I They replied with, "No, you're not. You have BPD." And I feel like, especially in women, that is a really common thing to happen. They deny like the prospect of us having autism or having different disabilities and try to put any label they can on it.
Yeah. I think like it is quite tough in schools, I think, because there's already like I feel like neurodivergent people are already singled out. And then because of
Mm.
like social media and the lack of like education about neurodivergencies, a lot of young people they're just ignorant. Like they won't
Very much.
care. They won't care. They don't try to care or even like try and learn about
Yeah.
the different neurodivergencies. So I think like you said, having teachers and like a support network at school with adults, for example, could actually be really beneficial.
Yeah, like also what I personally think, like going on to the politics atmosphere about like I don't think politicians, obviously you may think different, like politicians understand how the education system has a like view on neurodivergent people and how education actually plays a massive part because you're there uh, 6 hours a day for 5 days a week in some cases. A lot of times, education is where young people find out they've got autism, ADHD, or OCD, or any other neurodivergent issue. So that's where I think the government needs to kind of think at, is there a program that could be put in the education system that can make that better or what? Because I think also a lot of the time is neurodivergence put into the mental health sector, which yes, in some cases it
Mhm.
is, but it's not always mental health.
Mm.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
I've I've noticed this is sort of like a similar point, but I've noticed it with medication as well. They try to like medication is always for mental health professionals. It's always the first go-to, especially like neurodivergent people. They may be expressing like autistic symptoms, for example, and always their first reaction is to go like, okay, we're going to put you on medication. And I really, really agree with what you said about neurodivergent young people, and being like it being labeled as mental health issues. It's because people with authority don't like anything that's different. They will try to categorize them and single them out, and they will label it as behavioral issues. That's what I find. I find that anything that's seen as different, any neurodivergent trait is put down to bad behavior when it's not. We should be taking a different approach. We should be, treating like accommodating young people instead of telling them that they're doing wrong for something that they can't control.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. And I think also like for young people that might not necessarily be in school, they might be homeschooled or
Mm.
they might not be in educational training. For them, I think it's even harder to like, because like you were saying, Cody, I think you said schools is a massive place where people can find out if they have a
Yeah.
neurodivergency. And if you're not in school or in any form of like institutional education, it can be even harder to like find out or like
Yeah.
get
There's no
diagnosed because
support.
there's no support and there's such a lack of awareness about what the different neurodivergencies are, because I feel like they often
Mm.
get grouped into just neurodivergency instead of it
Yeah.
being differentiated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I think that's why like things like activism is like so so important as well because it actually gives us a space to speak for ourselves. Unfortunately, like a lot of the time, people don't listen. Like politicians especially, they won't listen. But I do find that if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, eventually they're gonna have to take notice.
Yeah, um like for me as well, like obviously being in my local youth council, like speaking to politicians, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but like politicians, especially when they talk to neurodivergent people, first of all, they're very like they act like you're like such a child for me personally.
Yeah,
This is coming
yeah,
from me
yeah.
personally. But like they also like try and like mansplain politics to you in a way, like if that makes sense. But also politics to any neurodivergent person, which I think something needs to change about that, is like it's so hard for them to understand. For example, if you watch PMQs, I only just about worked out how PMQs works. But if any other neurodivergent person watched it for the first time, they will have zero clue on what how it actually works. And they expect 16-year-olds to go vote in the next general election. But then you're like half, I would say, young people are neurodivergent, but they do not have a clue. So
Mm.
I don't know what are your guys' views on that?
I mean, there's something called rejection sensitive dysphoria, which I like spreading awareness about a lot, because it's so prominent. Basically, rejection sensitive dysphoria is if, let's say, a neurotypical person, so a person who wasn't autistic, like didn't have ADHD, any of those conditions, if they, like, for example, experienced like some form of rejection, they'd be sad and they'd be hurt, but that would be it. If a neurodivergent person experiences a form of rejection, it suddenly is dysphoria. So we go really in on ourselves and we feel like there's something really deeply wrong with us. And it really, really affects us. It changes our whole way of seeing things. Like I like to say that like one thing that a neurotypical person might find, oh, okay, and then move on from a neurodivergent person, it may be like stop us from being able to function for that rest of the day. It's really, really prominent. And I feel like when with politicians, when they're speaking down to young people so much, it's so much harder. It's so much harder for neurodivergent people to advocate for themselves. And like they do it a lot because I was also in like my local youth council, like the charity youth council or the Hastings Youth Council when it existed. And I found that like going to different meetings, it was like things that people didn't know that they were doing. But even the amount of eye contact, it's so exhausting. And or just the like way they can talk to us, it feels so patronizing. And it often just feels like they don't take us seriously at all.
I think like in general, like young people aren't taken seriously by
Yeah,
politicians. And then I think like it's even worse. Like I think if you're a part of the neurodivergent community, because it's just kind of like
yeah,
it's like another layer of not being taken seriously, which can be really frustrating,
mm,
I think, for young people.
yeah.
Ugh,
Well,
I don't want to think.
well,
Sad to think about. I can't. It's really
like
frustrating.
in your opinion, like I mean, I guess this goes to both of you. Like, in your opinion, what do you think the government right now could implement or do to better this system and reform it?
I have a lot to say about that, actually. I just think it's so simple as to just getting like for example, paying neurodivergent people to teach educational professionals like specifically because education's very big um about neurodivergent conditions. And that works for like young people who may be delivering the training. They can get like they can learn how to do that like confidently. I think it needs to come from neurodivergent people. I don't think it can come from a neurotypical person because they just it won't have the same effect because they're not experiencing it. But I just getting teachers trained on these conditions so they can be more aware of what to do. It just makes a massive difference. And it's for some reason they don't seem to comprehend that and they're wondering why there's such a big mental health crisis within neurodivergent young people. And it's because we're mistreated so much.
My brain just forgot the question because I had to turn the mic back on.
What, what do you think the government could do or implement?
Oh, I think, yeah, I think kind of similar actually. I think one, I think just generally raise more awareness. Like just I think there needs to be a
Mm,
general like
yeah.
spike in how people are aware of like different neurodivergencies. And I think, yeah, having people that are trained to like maybe like one
Mm,
identify it and two also be able to actually support a young person because I think like you're
Yeah.
saying without that support it can be really difficult
yeah.
for young people. So that's I think really important. But I think also maybe not like the government particularly, but maybe just like people in general, I guess, is to be a bit more
Yeah.
interested, like to actually like want to understand and want to
Mm,
learn and be more
yeah.
aware of like different neurodivergencies and how they can impact someone's life
Mm.
because
Mm,
I don't think that is about enough. I
no.
don't know if that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would
I
say.
I think there's like a massive thing with stigma as well,
Mm,
and how like neurodivergent young people were so stigmatized, and I think a lot of that has to do with like different TV shows, different things on the media that influence so many different people's perceptions. There are really good pieces of media. Like I'm going to give a shout out to A Kind of Spark, really good representation of autism in women. I absolutely love it so much and also Heartbreak High, which has a really good inter like a representation of again an autistic woman. But like, I feel like a lot of the pieces of media they just show one specific type of an autistic person, and everyone assumes that's what autism must look like. And when autism doesn't look like that, it suddenly we can't be autistic. Suddenly we're hysterical or mentally ill rather than experiencing a like biological like different brain wiring.
I think the media has such a huge
yeah.
role to play
Okay.
in how like different neurodivergencies are portrayed.
Mm,
Because like you said, like there's one image that like every single TV show and every single
yeah.
movie will have. And it's just not true. And I think like
Yeah.
not just with neurodivergencies, but when people see something that they don't correlate with what they've probably seen online, they immediately don't associate with that. Like
No.
immediately it's like, no, that's not what it is. Like that's not what it
Yeah.
is. And it's just so dismissive and ignorant. And I think there needs to be less of that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think like a lot of people say the government isn't in control of this. I do honestly believe they are, because there's got to be obviously so like I'll use a quote actually from a councillor in my local council. Like the council claim that they just have to look after children anyway. That's just their responsibility, and they would do it even if there was no funding because that's just the right thing to do. And that was councillor's name, councillor's quote on that. And I believe if we are just going to look after children because that's the right thing to do, then I think the right thing to do is care for everyone,
Yeah.
not just a bunch of
Exactly.
people, and don't class them as just one person. So if it's the right thing to do, then do
Do
it.
it. Like actually do it. And yeah, like you said, I think children includes everyone.
Yeah,
Like children isn't only neurotypical people. Children is everyone. Do you know what I mean? No matter
yeah,
your race, your
Yeah.
ethnicity, like your gender, regardless, a child is still a child, guys. Like, can we please look after them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what though? I feel like with like the mental health system specifically and like every every different system, political system, education system, they they look after they claim they try to look after children until they're 18, but then there are these like again usually neurodivergent young people that are just completely missed from that because they don't fit the standard of what like, a certain condition should look like, and then they don't get the support they need, and then they turn 18 and then they're just abandoned again. I could go on a lot about CAMs specifically and how much they're wronging young people, and as soon as they turn 18 it's bye bye, it's just nothing, even if a young person has been waiting for years.
Yeah, and in another episode that we've done with another one of our guests, Naomi, we were talking about waiting lists, and she brought up the point of like you're like when you're not 18, so when you're under 18, you're on like one waiting list, and as soon as you turn 18, you get put onto like the adult waiting list, and then you kind of just get set back,
Mm.
not from the progress that you did made, but you're literally at like the end of a completely different list with a completely different number of people, and it's just like is there any hope
Yeah.
to
No.
actually get to the top of that list? Because it can be such a pain.
As well, like I mean, it's another like think about question really, but like obviously CAMS is only there for like 18-year-olds and then they say bye bye. Um, what do you guys think there should be something? Because there's nothing actually, I believe, for actually adults like CAMS. Do we actually think that the government should introduce something like this?
Yes, yes. I think I mean I had a slightly like different experience, I guess. I mean, I was under the CAMS waiting list for my autism diagnosis. They lost my file multiple times. I just got completely lost in the system. So that's negligence on the whole other level. What I did is I got so fed up that I started emailing them every single day until they saw me. And that still took 3 years of constantly nagging them. Eventually, I wasn't actually assessed under CAMS. They got a private company or called Psychon or something to like assess me for autism. But because I kept nagging, it was still done, luckily. I think with Cody, I forgot your question.
So basically it's like, should the government introduce something like CAMS for like adults?
Yes, yes. I 100% think they should. I think the more support we have, the better. Simultaneously, I think we actually do there are support there is like bits of support out there that like no one knows about because they can't they maybe they don't advertise themselves well. Maybe they're not being seen. But I find that if I keep pushing, 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 and like with looking for support, eventually I will find something that I had no idea existed. I think there are lots of people trying to make things better for young people, but I think young people don't know about it. I believe those charities should get more recognition. But again, simultaneously, I think it's always just aimed towards that idea of male presenting autism, for example, or like mental health that they don't really take you seriously unless you're completely, completely, completely in crisis. And even if you're completely in crisis, then they don't take you seriously either.
Yeah, to answer your question, Cody, I think there should be. I think there definitely should be because like sometimes you won't know you're neurodivergent until maybe a little later in life when you're starting to realize actually like maybe like I want to get checked for this or maybe I don't.
Mm.
Like obviously that's up to you, but you might not notice that or you might not realize it
Yeah.
until you are 18. And I think for a lot of people like they might not know it like when they're younger. Like I'm just gonna
Yeah.
like from my own experience like culturally like because when I used to live in India, like maybe because I was younger, but even then it should be spoken about. Like I didn't really know a lot about neurodivergencies until I came to England.
Mm.
That there could be different reasons for that. One, like culturally, it's not as accepted. Education there isn't like public, like it's private. So the paying parents have a lot of control over what students are being taught in schools. There could be so many different things that can count towards that. But that's like I could talk about that. That's a different thing. But yeah, I do think like it could be like later in life you might realize it, or like you might move away and actually like have a think and realize that. So I think there should be something for adults. But that being said, I also think there should just be improved services so people
Mm.
can identify it when they're younger. Because like I feel like the earlier you know it, I feel like maybe you might understand yourself a bit more. Like it will help you
Yeah,
get to know who you are as an individual.
yeah. Like, I mean, I was talking on that point as well. Like, I don't identifying as you're young. Like, I like your point as well before, and I've always realized is like in schools, there's always this stereotype that boys is so much more easier, like to point out. Because I mean, it kind of like this how teachers view it. I'll put it very straight. Like, how boys they believe they're neurodivergent is because they play up, they keep talking in class, they keep doing that. So clearly that they're neurodivergent. But if it's a girl or woman, then it's like they're either on their period or they're just playing up because their friends are there. But if it's a boy, then it's a completely different thing. There's clearly something wrong with that boy. So yeah,
Mm.
I completely agree with that point.
It's misogyny. It is completely misogyny. And I could get that is a whole other thing that I'm not going to get into because I could go into it a lot. But I think like it's everywhere within neurodivergent communities. It's definitely there within the diagnosis system. It's definitely there. I think something I wanted to like mention specifically is CAMS. I do work with like I do specific bits of work with CAMS as well on improving their services. And I think that one thing that I think a few of them are trying to push for is making CAMS up to 25 instead of up to 18, because I feel like that would be a lot more encompassing. They're struggling with funding a lot, and that's the reason why a lot of young people get missed. Because the government, again, it goes back to the government, isn't putting enough focus on it. There needs to be more focus, there needs to be more funding.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
perfect. I think I've really enjoyed like hearing so many different views, and I really do hope. I mean, hopefully the government's watching this right now, but like they actually take this serious. And I do hope many MPs do bring this up because I know like in like a fun fact before we end as well is PMQs, so Prime Minister's questions, the number one topic that's ever been brought up is send. Just so everyone knows, that is the number one topic ever brought up in PMQs.
And it's still such a major issue. It's
And
still
nothing's done.
such a
yeah,
major thing. Nothing's been done about it.
you know what? It's because they don't relate to it themselves. That is
Mm,
completely the reason why. Because a lot of them don't experience it themselves. It doesn't bother them, so they can't understand it. I do truly believe that you can't really truly understand something unless you've experienced it yourself. I think you can try, and I think there are definitely MTs who do definitely try, but equally, I think there are a lot that don't at all, and there are a lot that just want to like their reputation to be good. They just want to be like only there for like a photo op. They just want to look good. They don't actually care.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think like part of that problem is probably just the general fact that it's harder for neurodivergent people to get into politics
Mm,
because of how they've been stereotyped and how they're
yeah.
viewed by other people. So because of that, there's less representation in the actual government itself, which is
Yeah.
kind of unfair.
Yeah.
Very unfair. Not kind
Yeah.
of, it's very unfair.
But
But
yeah,
yeah.
is that okay
Yeah.
with you? Yeah.
Lovely.
So,
Perfect.
so thank you so much for coming on to our podcast, and everyone, please do check this video out.
Yeah. We
So
said it at the end, but you
yeah,
should still re-listen to this,
yes.
I think.
Um,
But yeah,
yes.
thank you so much for coming on lots. It was really lovely to
Yeah.
speak to
Thank
you. A
you.
really, really important topic.
So yes,
Cool. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Bye.